Welcome to the Limitless Mind podcast. I'm your host, Travis Magus, with the beautiful co-host, Apollo Sol.
Hi, super excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to discussing all the weird, wonderful, and beautiful theories and concepts that we have lined up, as well as sharing some wonderful information with you, our dear audience.
Fantastic. So today, we're going to be talking about the impact of the emotionally immature parent on the inner child. And this is important because we all have an inner child. But what we don't realize is that inner child is very strongly affected by how we were raised by our parents.
I mean, absolutely. Like, when you're a kid, you absorb everything like a sponge. And what I find most interesting is that, I don't know if you've noticed it, or if like people say it literally, or maybe I'm just misunderstanding, but sometimes you hear the term, it's like, oh, well, I get this trait from my mom, right? Or I get this trait from my dad. And it's almost like they're implying that they were born with it, right? They were, the traits and the characteristics got passed on the same as like eye color or hair color would. But effectively, are we not all born as a blank slate and then molded and shaped by our experiences into the way we are?
And that brings a very interesting point, because the big argument is nature versus nurture.
Absolutely.
Right? A lot of people argue, well, is it that we are a blank slate and our environment programs us to become something? Are we a product of our environment? Or do we come pre-installed with a set of programs that give us a predisposition to certain behavior?
I mean, in terms of like survival mode and the reptilian brain, I would say absolutely. But in terms of the finite, detailed things like your personality, your likes and your dislikes, I would say that's shaped by your experiences and by your parents.
So I think that is a good way to look at it, as opposed to just being so diametrically opposed to one or the other. Maybe there is a mix.
Well, I mean, it depends on your perspective, but the most beautiful thing about that is if you have something about yourself that you don't like, or if you've absorbed these traits and you find that, you know, it's not suitable, it's not useful or appropriate, you can wipe the slate clean. You can start again and shape yourself into the way you want to be. Like, that's so freeing. So imagine that you're living your life, but your beliefs and the way you are isn't even you. So sometimes when you find limiting beliefs popping up, it's a good exercise, it's a good habit to kind of take a breath, step back, and try and analyze where that came from. Because oftentimes you find that the belief didn't just come from somewhere, it came from either a traumatic or negative experience, or more than likely our parents.
Yeah, very good information to know why. Because, like you said, most people feel that they're bound to their behavior patterns, right? For example, they said, you know, well, my mother's like this, or I'm like this way because of my father or my parents. And in a way, when we say those kind of things, we accept it and we just say, oh, well, that's just how I am. Most people, when they talk like that, they're not trying to change it or correct it. It's almost being used as a crutch to continue behaving that way.
Yeah, but it's also seems that, I mean, for the longest time, like, I didn't realize this, and I don't think many people do. We don't realize the full impact that our parents have on us. So, for example, say you have an emotionally immature parent, and, you know, this is supposed to be your caregiver, your protector, but as a child, you don't know how to deal with that when your parent isn't meeting your needs, right? Whether that's emotionally, they're not paying attention to you, they're using you as a crutch, whatever that is. And then what happens, like, I know from personal experience, and many other people go through this, what happens is, as a kid, because you don't know how to deal with it, you develop like some sort of like escapism fantasy, right? So you're imagining in your head how to get out of the situation, and you may think that, you know, oh, well, maybe down the line somebody's gonna come save me, or maybe I will meet somebody, you know, a partner or a friend that will satisfy what I couldn't have as a child from my parents, right? But then, because you have that mindset and you're going into the adult world, obviously we know frequencies align with frequencies, right? Your mind is focused on that, and therefore all you can see and all you can attract is people with the same mindset. But even so, most people, because we don't know how to deal with this, right? This isn't taught in school, but most people in life are emotionally immature, so you then get your dreams and your hopes crushed one more time, because you went from being a child to not having your needs met by your parents, to then hoping that, you know, in adult life somebody will come and they'll save you, they'll love you how you wanted to be loved. Then you get your dreams crushed again, and you're like, damn, like, you know, like, this sucks. And two things can happen, right? You can either become an asshole, because you're like, okay, man, the people are just disappointing me, they're hurting me, like, I can't open myself up to them, like, it's like, look at what's happening, it's a reoccurring pattern. But then you also start to doubt yourself at the same time, because you're like, why am I so hard to love? What's happening? Why am I going for this? And that's a crappy way to live, man.
It really is. And unfortunately, it's the reality for very many people. So it sounds like what you're referring to is what sometimes they call healing fantasies. Because as children, we don't really connect emotionally or intimately with our parents.
Yes.
So we don't get the love that we need to develop. And as a natural human being, we communicate in story and metaphor. So what we do is we create a metaphor and we try to make a story that makes sense. You know, we make excuses. As children, we'll go to any length to try to explain what's actually happening to ourselves. And what we find is that those stories don't actually go away. They develop into patterns that that turn into programs that affect our behavior.
Absolutely. But the thing is, as well, it's like, I was thinking about it earlier, and the whole concept is, so, you know, when you're a kid, right, you don't really have anything. You don't have any status. You don't think like that. You're just yourself, right? You're your raw self. And when you don't get your needs met by your parent, you're like, oh, okay, I must do something different than who I really am, you know, to try and get something. So essentially then you're going into adult life and you have your very bad foundation, right? You're trying to build a house on like a soggy field or something, and you're trying to stack stuff on top. You're like, okay, well, you know, maybe if I have like a lot of money, or I have a nice car, or, you know, I'm intelligent, or I'm really smart, then maybe then people will love me. But you're just adding stuff on top without fixing the core issue. So then that just makes it even worse, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I mean when I say that this influences our behavior. Think about, like, even based on what you just said, like, there's so many things that we create in our minds as children just to make life make sense. And what people fail to realize is that these programs and algorithms that we create, algorithms of thought process, they don't go away. They continue running. And like you said, we just build on top of them. So even if the structure, the foundation is faulty, you know, we might have a structure that works, right? I might be able to be functional in society, finish college and do my job well. But then when I get home, right, when I'm in an intimate relationship with my partner or family member, the cracks are very evident, right? Like if I'm used to being abused, if I'm used to having to try to prove myself, or if I just don't feel up to standard, it's almost like having a bucket with cracks in it. And if you fill it up with water, the leak might not be apparent. But once that bucket is full, there's no way for the leak to be ignored.
Yeah. But what makes it even worse, right? It's a reoccurring pattern. Because then you have these issues. So for example, say, you know, you have your emotional loneliness, and you might finally believe that, you know, your partner can heal it. They can always take care of your needs first. They'll never let you down. But then when your partner can't meet those expectations, you're just further, like, pushing out the pattern. Do you know what I mean? You're not breaking the chain or getting out of the cycle. You're just continuing. And then if you have kids, it's even worse, because you have all these unresolved issues, and then you're raising a child with those unresolved issues, and the cycle just continues. And that's why so many people are miserable, or they're sad, or they're operating on these programs that aren't even theirs, right? Because parents don't know how to correctly raise children. Bearing in mind it's not a one size fits all, right? But a lot of parents just kind of either use their kids as a crutch, or they just don't know how to nurture them in the correct way. So when they grow into adults, they're functioning at their optimal capacity instead of being weighed down by insecurities, burdens, and all these problems that have just been passed down essentially from generation to generation. I mean, in magic, what is it? It's called like generational curses. You could well say that that is the biggest burden.
Hell, I heard some people even speak of a thing called karma.
Oh, I wonder what that is.
So it's almost as if a person who doesn't heal their trauma or these patterns that they've created as children, they themselves grow up to become immature parents, emotionally immature parents. And the cycle continues. And we ensnare others into our web, right? Say, for example, if we were someone who was abused, we attract people to fill in that role of our lives. And now both of us are playing out these roles that we were given in our dysfunctional upbringing.
Yeah. But that is why a good self-concept is so important, right?
Self-concept. So when you talk about a self-concept, what's a good general overview of that?
I mean, to me, it's my unconscious beliefs. And it's not like me just waking up and looking in the mirror and parroting, like, oh, I'm so beautiful and I'm so smart and so intelligent. It's the feeling that you have about yourself, right? When you take away those affirmations and you shut up your conscious mind, what's your unconscious mind saying about you? Because you can be saying those things all day long, but if you feel different about yourself, you're gonna see that mirrored out to you in your everyday life, and that sucks. So that is why shadow work is so important.
And it's a very real thing. You know, like all the stuff that we're talking about today, everyone's going through this at some level, at some degree. Some people a lot more, and then some people a little bit less. But I think we could all benefit from learning how to see ourselves clearly. You know, sometimes an outside perspective can help, because the whole reason that we're having these issues is because we block ourselves from seeing ourselves clearly. And it does have a lot to do with self-concept. And we talk about the self-concept, we're really dealing with our values, our self-esteem. But basically, self-concept is this idea of, like, just imagine all of your life up to this point, and your personal generalization of that, your personal assumption of what you believe yourself to be. Now, we think about being prejudiced, or we think about, what's the word? Profiling, right? We think about, oh, well, you don't need to do that. Treat everyone with a clean slate. But as human beings in society, this is a natural part of the ego. We generalize, we assume, and we do that to ourselves. So it's more than just the self-talk, like what you were saying. It's more than just, oh, I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise. I'm beautiful and smart. It's more than that. On the subconscious level, on the unconscious level, you have a generalization about your whole self. You have a prejudice. You have a profile. And no matter what you think today, there's a long-standing history of you believing that you are a certain way.
Right, and one can even argue from a spiritual point of view, it's not even this life, but all the lives stacked on top of each other. But that's a source for a different day.
So why is it so important to know about self-concept?
Well, I mean, if reality is a mirror, you want the very best reflection looking back at you. But even if you don't believe in that, why would you want to feel bad about yourself? Think about it. If every possibility is out there and anything could happen, and there's a 50-50 chance of it going good or bad, Why would you want to believe that the bad is happening? Granted, it's hard when you have a poor self-concept. I know. I've struggled with that for many years. But with the correct tools and techniques, you can rewrite your beliefs. And just knowing that you can wake up and be happy about the mundane and feel better about yourself, that alone in itself is a great reason to do so.
I can agree with that. Yeah, especially, like you said, having struggled with this for many years and not knowing how to stop it, not knowing how to get out of it, it can really suck being...
It does, man.
Being in a position where you wake up every single day and it's like, here we go again, right?
Man, it's not even that. It's when you wake up and you're like, hell, I'm gonna go back to sleep because I don't want to deal with the mundane.
Right.
So you end up sleeping for like 12 hours a day because you're like, damn, like at least when I'm sleeping, I'm not thinking about these like negative limiting beliefs. Because we know that what we pay attention to amplifies, right? Where attention goes, energy flows. So imagine if you have all these negative beliefs, right? Like, I can't do this. I can't be a millionaire. I can't find love. Like, I'm not worthy. Your mind's going to pick that out anyway. You're going to just see that reflected back to you because you're just focused on it. So your brain is bringing that to the center of your attention and being like, okay, cool. Well, look, we found negativity here and we found something bad here as well. Like, and you're like, whoa, this is so overwhelming. And this is how depression happens because you're just so overburdened that you can't see otherwise. Why waste your life living like that?
Yeah. And even if it was a choice, I mean, it is really hard. It is really hard. And we have to gather a lot of inner strength to change that. Because like you said, nobody
wants to feel that way.
Right. But it takes a lot of effort to get out of that. And here's how powerful the mind really is. We talk about the phenomena where you might be really attracted to a certain kind of car. And then all of a sudden, when you're out and about in your life, you keep seeing that same kind of car pop up over and over and over again. I first remember this when I was really, really young. My aunt got a brand new red car. And me and my brothers had this joke, like, whenever we saw a red car, that was like her. And then we kept seeing red cars everywhere. And then as I got older, like, I'd see a specific brand of car, and I'd keep seeing it over and over and over again, only because I was thinking about buying it. Right? At the time, it was a Volkswagen. So even something that small and seemingly insignificant shows the power of our attention and our focus. Now, sure, there's a scientific word for it. What is it? RAS, reticular activation system. And just like everything else, science has a word for it, but that doesn't explain it away, right? It's categorized, but there's still something happening there. They don't talk about how that reticular activating system is activated. It's the power of awareness, attention, and focus. So if we take that towards ourselves, and all we can focus on is the fact that we are not good enough, that we don't believe that we can ever do something because we've never done it before, if we stay focused on those kind of things, we will keep populating it. Just like seeing the same red car or the same Volkswagen, or in your case...
I mean, in my case, it is actually cars as well. Like, a funny thing is, like, my dream cars ever since I watched James Bond as a kid was Aston Martin. And I really liked BMWs, like, in particular M4s, just how sleek they looked and nice. And, I was imagining myself being a millionaire and what it would be like to buy my M4. So I had it all configured out, latest specs. And now I can't stop seeing it everywhere. Like, before, I never even saw it on my daily walks, and now it's everywhere. Like, I won't even be going to look for it. I'll be on my phone, minding my own business, and my intuition will be like, look up. And I look up and I see it. It's there.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think all of us have had situations like that, right? I think cars is like the most popular way that this happens. I'm not like a big GTA person, but I do know when playing that game, at least the older one, like, whenever you would steal a certain car or buy a certain car, more of those would be on the street. Do they still do that?
In GTA? Geez. I don't know. I haven't played GTA 5 in a long time. I guess so. But then that leads us to another theory of, you know, everything being reflected, and what if life is really like a video game? A simulation. Conspiracies.
You know, when you think about an open world game like GTA, it's like they have different things that you can do and different people that you can meet, but really it's up to what you choose to do with your power of awareness, right?
Right.
You have your awareness focused on the character, and you can take that character into work, to commit a crime, to do a job, whatever. It's up to you. And depending on what you do, affects the whole landscape. Is there a meaning to GTA? Like, is there a story?
There's a main story, yeah, that you can play, but it's also multiplayer. So essentially, it's like, you know, kind of a reflection of the world where everyone's plugged in and doing their own thing, and you interact, and yeah.
So there is a main story, but you don't have to follow that story. Is that right?
No, you don't have to follow it.
You could literally just play that game and not finish the story. Is that true?
Yeah, you could just play online and kill people all day long if you want to.
Makes me wonder about the purpose of life.
Yeah. But it also makes me wonder about the truth of reality. Like, what even really is reality? Is it just one existence, or is it multiple infinite realities where, for example, okay, have you ever had this feeling, right, where you're existing and you're like, whoa, I am me, and I am in this meat suit, and only I can look through my own body. I can't look through your eyes or anybody else's eyes. And when you play video games, it's like you're the main character, right? And in real life, you have all these non-playable characters around you, and you can say different things with them. You can, you know, have a different dialogue. You can do your little side quests of, you know, going to work and whatnot. And to me, like, when I think about the parallels, it's so trippy, because we don't know what reality really is, right?
We don't even know what consciousness is. We talk about it, but we don't know.
We can't even comprehend what consciousness is in this level. That's the beauty of it.
As human minds, we need an answer. It's very difficult for us to rest on, I don't know. So that's why a lot of people turn to science when they can't explain stuff. But what they don't grasp is that science doesn't really give us answers. It just gives us words that we can use to pacify ourselves, right? Like, they try to approach these massive concepts, like, you know, the quantum mechanics and how black holes work and all this other stuff.
CERN.
There's not really an explanation. Yeah, CERN. We just get a symbol, and it's like a placeholder. You know, like consciousness. The word itself doesn't explain what it is. It's just an idea, and we have that word, so at least we can talk about it. That's what science does, right? But what I love about spirituality is that it gives you a deeper look at what these things may actually be. But just like what you were talking about as far as like this concept of a simulation, you know, and here I am looking through these eyes, but I get this sneaky feeling that I'm not this body and I'm not these eyes. It does feel like playing a video game sometimes.
Right. But if you think about the the whole concept of spirituality, right? If you take Kybalion on whatever, so, you know, you have this concept of God, and it's not God as in, you know, Sky Daddy or the Demiurge. It's just a neutral source of energy. We don't know why it's here or how it really manifested. We just know that one day, because it's in the manifest, it's going to essentially suck everything back into itself, and then the cycle potentially repeats, right? So there is nothing else. There is just this energy. And spirituality, for the most part, says that our souls are part of that energy, right? So we're all the same thing, just in different meat suits. So the concept of that source being there and being nothing else, and it's interacting with itself, what if we are all in our own individual realities, right? Just like a brand new save file on a game. You're the main character. There is nobody else that is perhaps not conscious necessarily, but there's just one main character, and everything else around you is an NPC, and it's your world to build how you want, all based on your self-concept, your attention, and your beliefs. So in my world, you're an NPC, right? But in your world, you're the main character, and I'm an NPC to you, and we each have our own different side quests. I was thinking about this concept earlier, and it blew my mind, because I was like, whoa, this is like the potential theory of infinite realities existing. So you have the giant macrocosm, right, where the source is in, where's the Ein Sof at the top, behind the three veils of existence, and it all trickles down, because we know that it has to reflect, right? It has to, that's the pattern, it's as above, so below. So if there is only one source, and we are the same thing, right, and as it goes down, just kind of like a Russian doll, it spreads out and spreads out like a tree with the branches. What if there are infinite realities, infinite microcosms for each conscious person on this world?
What if indeed? What if? Endless possibility. And that goes to show the magnitude of what consciousness may actually be. Consciousness can express itself in a complex being, and it also can express itself in a simple being. So just like you said, in your world, you're the main character. In my world, I'm the main character. And a person who might be less spiritually or intellectually evolved, they're the main character, right? Say we mentioned NPCs. In an NPC's world, he's the main character. He or she is the main character.
NPC lives matter.
NPC lives matter. We need to make a shirt.
New merch coming soon.
Yeah. That's the complexity of consciousness, because consciousness is even within, like, say, plants and rocks, right? And tiny atoms. Like, it's everywhere. It can be complex or it can be simple.
Yes. Would you say that consciousness is also in physical objects?
I would. Well, I wouldn't say in, but I would say behind. I think behind might be a better way to explain it. Because
Why is that?
To be honest, consciousness isn't in us either. We're in consciousness. As human beings, we have these grandiose ideas about being on top of the food chain. But that's one of the many lies that we tell ourselves so that we can behave in a civilized manner. We're in consciousness. I mean, the Kabbalion talks about that. Within the all, we live, move, and have our being. The Bible talks about it. It's an inner principle of Kabbalah, and even in Samkhya, the Vedic system. Just like how the Marvel Universe existed as an idea within Stan Lee's mind, all of us exist as ideas in a mind that we cannot comprehend.
That's the crazy thing about it. We can't even comprehend what this is. Not at this level of existence anyway.
Right. At this level of existence, we don't have the tools or the technology to understand it. And I'm not talking about computers and instruments. I'm talking about the technology of our awareness. Our awareness isn't able to expand that wide, at least not from this level. There are levels where the awareness can expand much wider. But it takes a certain level of conditioning.
Bound by matter.
At first, it's bound by matter. But we learn to transcend matter. That's why meditation is so useful. To be able to astral project, you can't let matter limit you.
But that's the crazy thing. It's not that the etheric plane or the astral plane is, up above us like Christianity or the religions would have us believe, like heaven is above in the sky. It's literally in another, would you say, dimension or reality? Or do you think it's all internal? Because when we do these techniques, right, we go within.
I would say it's at another angle. The words we use is really important, because like what I said earlier about science gives us words, and that just lets us have a handle on the concept. But the way that the human mind works, this is why neuro-linguistic programming is so important. Our mind has these ideas about the words. So it's like, in one way, and this is an NLP concept as well, words can liberate us, but at the exact same time, words limit us based on what we understand about the word itself. So when we talk about these higher dimensions and whatnot, I think it's better to look at it as being another angle of reality. Because if we see things from this angle, everything that we see is going to be filtered by this angle's experiences. But if we're able to maybe expand, see things from another perspective, we can see reality without attachment, right? As an example, if I were to sit down and meditate and focus on, say, like love, if I was thinking about it from my ego perspective, I'm thinking about what I love and who I love, right? Or who I have loved, or my experiences with love. If I was able to expand to a level past ego, I can experience love in its purity without having to love anyone or be loved by anyone. Do you see the difference?
Yeah, that's such a mind-blowing concept for most people, because they're like, well, how can, I experience love without, somebody loving me, right? You hear that a lot.
Yeah. And this is another symptom of being, at a lower level of evolution, I guess. And that is needing the physical plane to be able to trigger what's already within you, right? What we don't understand is that our awareness can be aware of anything at any time. But when we're so attached to our human experience, we require an external trigger to feel something. So we spoke a little bit earlier about my wonderful friend Amethyst Moon. She creates different potions and tinctures and oils, and she sent me a scorpion oil, which is some very potent stuff. And we were talking, and you were saying basically, you don't feel that you need anything external to be able to trigger an inner feeling. And I know that too. But what I also know is that how the human mind works, how the conscious mind works, it almost makes things a little bit easier to be able to intentionally weaponize, so to speak, awareness. And that's what Sigil Magic is, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a tricky ground, right? Because I remember when I first joined your Facebook group, and I would say it all the time, and people would be like, oh, like what color do I use, and how do I do this and how do I do that? And then when I kind of realized that these are all just props, and also it's bad, but I'm also kind of lazy, right? Instead of sitting there and be like, oh, okay, like it's Wednesday, it's Mercury day, so I'm gonna do this on Wednesday, or oh, it's Tuesday, Mars day, or red, and it needs to be aggressive male energy or whatever. Like, I would rather just either do it all internally, like the inner temple exercise, like Philip Cooper, and then just have the power flow within, right? Because to me, if we're going by like creation and whatever, and this source exists, the source didn't use a freaking white candle to manifest it. It just thought, right? And I can't remember the exact quote in the Bible, but it was something like what, and God spoke, and something was created. Or you might want to correct me on that one, because I think you know the Bible better than I do. It was in Genesis.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God.
There was nothing else, right? He just thought, or it just thought, and everything just came about. So, and I mean, in Cooper's work as well, he mentions that a lot, and it's like, yeah, you can build your temple, and have your little props and stuff, and wear your colored cloaks, but you have to eventually realize that that power comes through you, right? Because that's the difference between lower magic and higher magic.
Big facts. High magic and low magic. At one level, at one angle, I should say, we use the physical plane that we exist. Well, we use the physical plane that we're focused on. And we can recognize that every form here in this physical plane represents a force, or can represent a force, right? And from a higher angle, all those forces are accessible without any form.
Right. But the beauty of it is how it's all tied in together, right? Because, I mean, this is the difference. You can either be sitting here and you can be doing the rituals, and then, like, why isn't this working? And alternatively, you can also just have that firm belief, right? You've just thought it once, like, and we do it all the time. Like, heck, like a few days ago, I was working and I thought like, oh, I should ask my friend for like a cat update, like get him to send me some cat pictures. And I never send that text, right? But like 2 hours later, he pings the group and he's like, oh, hey, cat pictures. So that was just my thought, right? So imagine skipping the rituals and skipping all of that stuff and just firmly embodying and knowing that what you want will come to pass. But this is how it all links up. This is why self-concept is so important, because if you think that you're unworthy, and if you think that it's not going to happen, or every 5 minutes after you've just did your ritual, or you've affirm that it's going to happen, you're like, oh, okay, but I'm not worthy, or oh, okay, well this happened and I saw with my eyes that this person doesn't want me, or my bank account is saying this, then it's not going to happen. So at the very basis, self-concept and shadow work is truly the foundation that we need to be working on. It all ties in together.
Truly. So that's very interesting, right? This is the type of thing that I know most people don't really consider in life, but this is always happening in the background. And I think it would benefit us to spend a little bit of time just considering some of these concepts, because they lead to some very interesting places. So to just kind of summarize, we did talk a lot about the inner child and the effect of emotionally immature parents and why that's important. And one of the reasons that it's important is because how we were raised has a very real impact on how we think and how we process the world. And how we process the world determines what options we have. If we feel like the only option we have is to eat ramen noodles and walk to work, that's what we do. But if we know that we have many other options, we typically choose the best option. But this viewpoint is entirely dependent on how we were raised.
That's the beauty of it. It's just a pattern within a pattern within a pattern, and it continues because everything is connected. I love it.
And from there we moved on to talk about self-concept. We talked about how you see yourself, you're going to magnify more and more of what you see. The same way that if I fall in love with a Volkswagen Passat because it was the first car that I bought, when I'm driving, I'm probably going to notice that car more and more and more. And it isn't because I'm looking for it. It's because how awareness works. When we focus on something and we believe in it and have an emotional stimulus to it, it's almost as if we produce more of it. Now, that doesn't just work for cars. That also works for your emotional state. That works for your life experiences. Your beliefs about yourself really and truly determine what you receive. And then from the self-concept, we started to go into a little bit about a simulation approach to reality and consciousness, and how things appear differently from different angles. And honestly, if you think about it, all three of these topics tie together. It all has to do with the fact that the function and structure of your belief system determines what actually you experience. Isn't that so cool?
Absolutely. And so this is why, self-concept is so important. Like, speaking from personal experience, it's vital to have your default state on lock, because you can go about your day and you can be thinking all these things and trying to hype yourself up, right? But you'll just know inside that it's not working, because your subconscious will pop up, your unconscious will pop up, and it will tell you otherwise, right? And you're struggling to shift that state, and that is struggling to shift because something's holding you back, right? Because you're struggling to believe in the words that you're saying. It's not matching up with what your unconscious and your subconscious believe and what your conscious mind is trying to say. So it's very important to get that link across all three minds, and then you can start feeling good about yourself and implement the changes that you want to see, not in just yourself, but in the reality that, as humans, we're so obsessed with.
So hopefully you're reaching a point in your life where you truly understand that taking responsibility and taking accountability isn't and shouldn't be looked at as something difficult, strenuous, and stressful. But it's actually a beautiful thing. It's a gift. It's a reward. You've been given the keys now to create the outcome you want. So taking accountability is all about linking the cause with the effect, linking how your life is right now with the beliefs that you hold about your life, right? If you don't believe that you're worthy enough, if you don't believe that you deserve, then don't really expect to get it. And it's like you said, it's not some sky daddy, not some demiurge that's spanking you on the cheeks because you don't deserve it. It's you doing it.
Yeah, and the good thing is, dear listeners, you can start implementing change pretty much straight away. So myself and Trav have thought of some homework for you guys. Nothing serious, kind of fun. So Trav would like you to pay attention to synchronicities or reoccurring patterns in your life. For example, like we mentioned earlier, talking about seeing the same type of car. Maybe for you it's an animal, or a specific type of clothing, music. It can be absolutely anything. So it would be beneficial if maybe you keep a little notepad or a journal and just see, the numbers, colors, objects that are reoccurring in your life. And mine is slightly heavier, but if again you get a notepad and a pen and take a moment to really be real with yourself, sit down and write down all your current beliefs about yourself, about life, about other people, money, love, anything and everything. And then have a deep think about each belief and see if you can dig up where it came from. Did your limiting belief about money, for example, come from your parents? Or did your limiting belief about love come from a negative experience with a previous partner? Have a look, make a list, and then see if you can rewrite those negative beliefs into something that serves you more. But thank you so much for listening to our very first episode today. You know where to find Travis Majors. He's under LVX777 and Travis Majors on YouTube and Instagram. And for myself, mainly on Instagram. I'm a little bit shy about YouTube, but you can find me on Insta on the account _Apollo Sol _.